Hello, and thanks for taking a look at Precious Timber. This is Alex Wilson, CEO of Precious Timber. Today we're going to talk about Timberland, managed timber forests. Let's get started with the presentation. First of all, a little confidentiality notice. The message, including all of the follow-up materials that you may receive, are confidential and are legally privileged information. The message is not an offer to sell or a solicitation to offer or to buy any security or any interest in any fund. This is a straightforward fee simple real estate transaction where a prospect or interested party will be purchasing real estate and then planting high value tropical timber, and then the management services ongoing. We're talking about Nicaragua in Central America. We've been there now for coming up to 22 years. This is the port of San Juan del Sur along the southern Pacific coastline, just about a half an hour from the Costa Rican border. A spectacular, stunning Pacific coastline has attracted tens of millions of people over the last 20 years. Particularly North Americans, Canadians, Americans, and others. Obviously, a lot of them are adventure seekers, surfers. Many more are retirees, people that are looking for a safe, more affordable cost of living place to live. And so the coastline has been peppered with real estate and communities and residential developments, and so there's lots and lots of people from all over the world live there permanently now, and many that come for the seasonal festivities. The coastline of the country is stunning, whether you go down the Atlantic side or the Pacific side. It's one of the most beautiful parts of Central America that I've ever seen, and I've been to all of the countries in the region. Nicaragua's most beautiful city is Granada. It sits on Lake Nicaragua, which is the 16th largest freshwater lake on Earth, and just a majestic town with wonderful cosmopolitan residents. Of course, adventure is adventure seeking, adventure outside doors. People love that part of the world for all kinds of different activities that they can find and have fun on. So if you're an adventure seeker, I would recommend that one of these days you take a look at Nicaragua as a place for a vacation. We're not talking about the Nicaragua of the 1970s when they were having troubles. Nicaragua has changed a lot, and its economy has, done very, very well the last 20 plus years. The growth rate has been on average around 4.5% since 2008. There have been a few hiccups here and there, but the economy is pretty strong in Nicaragua. One of the things that makes that is that they're focused on green energy, geothermal energy in particular, even though they do have a lot of wind and solar. And they're one of maybe 4 or 5 countries that are very, very close to being 100% energy efficient. Today's Nicaragua has all kinds of international, very large corporations, from Levi to Cargill to Adidas, to Drexel, Meyer, and Unilever, and there's just so many, many big companies operating in the country today. As I said, we've been there now almost 22 years. We've been in the agricultural space for a long time too, and one of our focuses has always been on, the next generation. So we take the kids and we get them into the forests and we show them around and show them the wildlife and make sure they understand that, hey, they need to be protected, get them to plant a tree, and take that message home to their parents and their friends and their relatives. One of the initiatives that we started was chairs for schools. The kids would plant the trees, and the trees that they planted would be harvested at some point and then turned into chairs for their classroom. Another initiative of ours, of course, is employment. As you probably know, if you're North American, a lot of Central American individuals, families have been trying to come to North America because of their living conditions and the lack of wages. Of course, we're focused on a proper wage, a livable wage, and focused also on education, getting these guys into college and getting degrees so that they can move on and move up and become, steadfast citizens and individuals in their societies. We give them career jobs, not just weekly or day jobs. So we have a very sizable crew that manages most of the agricultural products that we plant for ourselves or for our clients. We're protecting the planet. It is a reforestation initiative, so when we do harvest trees, we replant many more. And we're creating new wildlife corridors too for wonderful exotic livestock. Okay, so let's get into timber. Timber really is a secret of the billionaires. The average investor probably does not and has not invested in timber. Most average investors probably know very little to virtually nothing at all when it comes to timber as an asset class, as an investment vehicle. But billionaires know, and they've known for a long time. In fact, the two gentlemen on the screen made their billions in the media business, but most of their investments are in land and timberland, and there's a reason for that. It's not just billionaires, it's any entity with billions. For example, endowments or institutions, very, very big into timberland ownership. Some of the faces here on the screen you might recognize. They're all billionaires or billionaire families. And, pretty much every one of them there, and the most recent on the left, all have, placed billions of dollars into this asset class for not only safety, but also for the very attractive ROIs that they receive. I like to say it's an asset that's reserved for billionaires, but really it's not. I mean, once you've done a little bit of research and you've got a little knowledge and you understand how the ROIs can be very, very, very attractive and the risk is pretty low, anyone that's not a speculator should generally end up putting timber into their portfolio. So what is the secret? Well, first of all, it's ultra safe. It produces above average returns. It's a tremendous wealth protector. It's a generational asset. It's easily passed on from generation to generation. And what I like in particular is that it's crash free. I mean, every 10, 12, 6, 8, 10, 12 years you see a stock market crash and an economy crashing. You don't really see that in the timber world. Billionaire money manager Jeremy Grantham, who manages over $100 billion for his clients, and in the 50 years that he's been investing and as an investor, he says that timber is the only low risk, high return asset, and it's the best long-term investment he knows. The average investor, most investors, generally gravitate to the stock market first. And of course, we're trained to do that by way of our financial system. Obviously, real estate would come second. Buying and selling real estate, buying and renting out real estate. The only hard asset maybe would be like gold. A lot of hedge funds, oil and gas, limited partnerships, bonds. 70 to 80% of the average investor, most investors, invest that way. That's how they formulate their portfolio. Very short term, very speculative. Billionaires, of course, they don't want to take those risks. They're not trying to hit, the jackpot. They're more concerned about loss avoidance, long-term sustainability and long-term appreciation. That's why timber, farmland, infrastructure, peer-to-peer lending, bonds, 70 to 80% of their portfolio is not high risk, it's low risk. In other words, old money, making sure that that money stays in the family. It's been called legacy investing. In other words, when you are making an investment, you're making an investment that's going to be in the portfolio for a very long time. No, I'm not buying it because I think the stock is going to go up in the next 3 weeks or 3 months or 3 years. That's a different philosophy. This is legacy investing, purchasing something and holding it forever. They're basically called real assets, and these real assets have safety in the dirt. When you plant a tree, it's not Wall Street or the financial markets that help that tree grow. It's Mother Nature. And I find that billionaires trust Mother Nature more than they do Wall Street. Because Mother Nature will help that tree go from a seedling to a 60-foot tree with 300, 400, 500 board feet of lumber, regardless of the ups and downs of the marketplace. And of course, if you're in the very high value tropical timber, which is what we grow, these assets are exceptionally valuable. And we saw just the recent couple of years when timber prices were sky high and through the roof. Of course, you can imagine the ROI that timber owners received. So we're not talking about 2x4s, we're not talking about plywood, we're talking about very, very high value tropical hardwoods, which end up in the most exquisite and luxurious places on earth, whether it be hotels, the boating world, instruments, and high-end hotels, places like that, high-end residences. On the left, you'll see in Nicaragua, it is a little bit primitive compared to the US. Obviously, the US doesn't really have too much in the way of high-value tropical timberland. But, we have to, in Central America, just like we do all across the world, we have to harvest, we have to cut down a tree, we have to replant for the sake of reforestation. And in the developed world, we use machinery, full of gasoline and pumping away with these automated tree felling machines. In Nicaragua, it's a chainsaw and a guy in town who has oxen. Very primitive. Of course, it's been done for centuries, decades. I mean, the old-fashioned way, and it works. And so that's just a couple of pictures of how we harvest. It's very less expensive, very low cost to harvest. Those ox will pull those logs for miles out of the forest and into the closest road where we can put them on a truck and send them off their merry way to the facility, to the product facility and mills and plants and furniture manufacturers up and down the region. I just wanted to show what's going on right now because this is an excellent time to start thinking about timber as an asset class in a portfolio, because the developed world does have these periodic, economic conditions, crashes and highs and lows. And right now, the risk to the global economic growth is not looking good. I mean, the downside is 88% and the upside is 12%. So we just don't have a good, positive forecast for what the economies of the world are going to look like in the near future. And then what's the biggest threat this year? Well, again, high inflation at 38% there on the right. Maybe new coronavirus variants, certainly central bankers and their tightening of policy too quickly. So when you think of those things, what could that mean? Well, it could mean we're about ready for an economic collapse. I'm not saying we are, I don't know. But I do know when you look back in history and you see what caused these economic crashes, what we have today is some of those same metrics. So when will the economy collapse? And what will your portfolio look like after the stock market gets hit or real estate comes off its crazy highs? You still want to get a good ROI. You still want to have your portfolio grow in downturn times. A lot of people don't have that happen because they're not invested correctly. Of course, a tree in a Central American forest that grows because of Mother Nature doesn't care about global crashes. It grows and the size of the tree increases, and so the ROI is growing every single year, regardless of what's happening globally. And that's very comforting. In fact, the NCREIF Timberland Index shows that tropical timberland has averaged around 14% annualized. And of course, many species can be much higher than that. Some can be as high as 20% annually. Yeah, 30, even higher. Seem too good to be true? Well, what's good and true is you plant a sapling into the ground, and the tropical conditions help that tree grow relatively quickly compared to anything like it here in North America. Instead of waiting 30, 40 years, half that time or less. So what is the best way to own timber? I believe the best way to own timber is the same way billionaires do. That is, you own the land, you own the trees, you have it managed by experts, and when the time comes for the tree to be felled, whether it's because the price of lumber is high and you want to sell when the tree is younger, or you want to wait until the tree is older, these people are on top of it. You harvest and you sell, and then you replant. We have individual owner programs right now, starting as low as $23,500, going up to $250,000, even higher. It's a tremendous time with what is possibly going to happen with the global economy to add timber to a well-diversified portfolio. We're currently in the middle of planting 10 million hardwood trees. And we suggest that you take a look and read our Precious Timber Billionaire's Secret overview, and also what's driving precious timber investments worldwide. Thanks for taking the time to reach and communicate with us. And here on the screen you'll see some of our forests and some of our plantations, and on the bottom right you'll see our seedling nursery. Thanks for listening. You see the number on the screen to call. You see info@precioustimber.com if you'd like to send us an email. Consider timber, especially tropical timberland in Central America. Thanks for your time.